Hello, my friends. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Anna. Today is the 10th of the month, and that means a top 10 list. The 10 most disturbing books that I've read that can actually traumatize you. So, if you are very sensitive, then you can consider that I've read these, so you don't have to. Or you want to know why I find these traumatizing and you want to read them for yourself. I know you're a bit like me. So the first book is a Dutch book. It is translated and the name is Sunken. It's written by Jeroen Brouwers, but the book is not longer available. You can find them secondhand, and I did. This is, of course, the Dutch version. You know that the Netherlands were a big colonizing country. Or it's very small, the Netherlands, but they had many colonies, and one of the largest in the world is Indonesia. Now, during the Second World War, Indonesia was occupied by Japan, and all the Dutch were locked up in prison camps. Jappenkampen, like they said in Dutch. Jap camps. Now, the men were locked up in one camp and women and children were locked up in another, but far from each other. This story is about a young boy who is locked up in one of those camps together with his mom. And his mom has to endure horrible, horrible torture, and while he is watching it. And because he gets so traumatized, he starts to hate his mother. And he did so for the rest of his life. That's what the story is about. This is a very, very visceral book, very believable. It is, for a big part, autobiographical, I believe, and it is heart-wrenching. You feel for that woman, oh my, and also for the little boy, because a 5-year-old isn't supposed to see those things. A 50-year-old isn't supposed to do these things. So yeah, his mom was, it was absolutely brutal, very, very brutal. So he saw everything. And after this book, I couldn't sleep for a couple of days. This was very shocking, very gripping. A second book is not yet translated in English. It is by Spanish author Juan Barcena. It is called Kanada. And Kanada refers to a section in Auschwitz concentration camp where they did the triage of all the luggage. And this is the story of a man who worked there as a prisoner. So the story starts when he is released from the camp and he goes to his old village, and he doesn't expect to find his house there. He thinks everything is bombed. But yet his house is still there, but it is taken by his neighbor, who rents out every room to fugitives. The neighbor says, oh yeah, you can stay here, no problem. Here's a room for you. It's in the coal shed. And we see how the man deteriorates because of his trauma. Around the middle of the book, the timeline goes backwards and in very high speed. And there you see everything that the man has lived through, and it is shocking. It is absolutely horrible. I have been a victim of trauma myself. It took me many, many years to come over it. I've worked through it. I used to stammer. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't function normally. And it was, that's why I lived for a very long time as a sort of recluse. So I could understand him really well. Unfortunately, he didn't have the help I had, and I pulled through. And now I use my skills to help others. And this book is so eye-opening. So if you have somebody that is living with a very traumatized person, maybe give this a read, because you'll know what they're thinking. And for me, this was very accurate and very close to the heart. A very good book. I hope they will translate it very quickly. It's already translated in 17 languages. The next book is not an obvious choice, but I will put it in anyway. It's by Gerard Donovan, and it's called Winter in Maine. Now, this book isn't meant to be a horror or a thriller or whatever, but still, it sneaks up on you. This is a story about a man who lives somewhere in Maine as a recluse. He lives in the very far away from civilization, and he lives in a cabin there together with his dog and thousands of books, classics, and he's really happy. He's really content. At a certain point, he finds his dog heavily wounded. He takes it to the vet. It takes a couple of hours to get there. And yeah, the vet can't do anything anymore. He says, well, your dog is shot. And by the looks of it, it is intentional. The pain he describes, losing a dog, it is so well done. It is, if you are an animal lover, you will be moved and you will be shocked of what will happen afterwards, but you will get it. It is a very, very claustrophobic novel, extremely well written. For me, it's the perfect novel, perfect ending. Everything is unexpected. And yeah, it is gripping. I've asked quite a few people to read this, and they did, and they all had nightmares afterwards. So if you are a bit sensitive, you might want to read it. You might not want to read it, but it's a beautiful, beautiful book. Beautiful, beautiful. So well written, so well done, and so unexpected. Yes. And then next one is by Selva Almada. Selva Almada, with this book, Dead Girls, she tackles the genre journalistic fiction, but it really is about 3 murders, 3 killings, femicide, that happened in the 80s in Argentina. And those 3 girls were taken from their homes and murdered. And the police didn't really care and did nothing to solve the cases. And yeah, it was like, okay, yeah, another girl dead. Yeah, take another one. So this is the first, those are the first book that really talks about those 3 murders. It is not the fact that the descriptions were very visceral, but it's the fact that it can happen to your own daughters. You know, be aware of that. Going on a date is a dangerous thing for a girl. The risks of getting murdered are real. Going to sleep in your bedroom with the window open is a real risk. Jogging at 6 p.m. in a park while dark is a real risk. And what do I want to say now? That we have to lock up the girls? No. We have to lock up the predators. So girls can sleep with the window open when it's hot, or they can go on a date, or with a good guy, and not something that is expected of them. You know, we are not sex dolls. So expect a no. Hopefully, yes, but expect a no. And respect the women you see, you date, you meet, and leave them alone. Okay? This one shocked me because it is marketed as a love story. It is by Bryn Greenwood, All the Ugly and Wonderful Things. This book is about a young girl, 9 years old, who meets an older man in his 30s and they begin a relationship. And people find it romantic. There's nothing romantic about a relationship between a 9-year-old and a 30-year-old. There's nothing sexy about that. Nothing romantic and sweet, even though they stay together for the rest of their lives. There's nothing good about it. He uses her for sex, although he waits until she is of a certain age to penetrate, but not for the other stuff. I mean, come on, this is not a love story. This is... I have no words for it. That's the only thing I can say for that. Now, one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. This is not a 5-star. This is 10 and beyond. It is written by Jonathan Litell, and it is The Kindly Ones. Jonathan Litell is from American descent. He lives in France and he writes in French. And it came out as Les Bienveillantes. The Kindly Ones is a fake memoir of Dr. Max Auer, who was a Nazi, and he talks about his wonderful times as a Nazi, and he talks about it with so much pleasure and so much arrogance and the horrible, horrible things he done, and he's so proud of it. If you have ever read Blood Meridian and you know the judge, well, the judge is a choir boy compared to Max Auer. This book is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Very well written, very well researched, very believable, and very, very disturbing. But brilliant, nevertheless. This is a really, really, really good book, but disturbing. Another book that I also find very disturbing is Heather Lewis. And the original title was House Rules. This is about the story about a girl who is 15 and she leaves school and she goes to, she is an avid horseback rider, Amazon. And also she is known in that world of horse riding and jumping and professional horse environment. And there she meets a brother and a sister, and she gets involved in a very, very abusive relationship. And it also comes out that she was abused and still is abused by her own father. And it's one abuse after another that she takes. And it is very disturbing because you know that those things actually happened. It's very autobiographical. So it is not an easy read. And because you feel for that girl, and because you feel that she isn't just a fictional character, this is very disturbing. And I'm glad I've read it. I've been thinking a lot about it, but it's one that I would like to forget. Then another book that they are two books. I put them on the same height. The Familia Grande and Consent. Consent is written by French actress Vanessa Springora, and this one is written by Familia Grande was written by Camille Kouchner, both French. Vanessa Springora is a young girl. I think she's only 13 when she meets a very famous French author. This is a real story. This is a memoir. And she meets so a very well-known, established French author. He is very highly regarded in France, but he's also a pedophile, a pervert. And he grooms her, he seduces her, and they have a relationship. But a very open relationship, a very openly relationship. So he takes her to literary gatherings everywhere, and people accept that this man from in his 40s has a relationship with a 13-year-old. And the problem is that she feels that something is wrong, but she also likes the attention because she doesn't have a father. And she thinks she's being taken care of. And yeah, of course, a 13-year-old, the thing they want most is to be seen as an adult. And yeah, this whole story, and because everybody agreed on this and accepted this, and even after a while, when she got a little older, she went to the police, and the police did nothing. And then only then she found his books, and yeah, she realized that, oh my God, this is all about pedophilia. So he has books that were written about his escapades in Thailand and Vietnam, and with young boys from the age of 4, you know, and the horrible thing is that even when everything came out, and yeah, it was blatant, but still a lot of very well-known actors and people from the establishment, writers, petitioned for the man. It took her many, 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 many years to get over the trauma. As a 13-year-old, you don't know what is happening to you. You don't, you know, he just used her, and people accepted it because he was an artist. This one, the Familia Grande, is also a memoir, in the sense of Camille Kouchner is the daughter of Eveline Pizier, who is a well-known political scientist or something like that. So she specializes in analyzing politics. And Bernard Kouchner. Bernard Kouchner is one of the founders of Médecins Sans Frontières. So she and her brother comes from a family that is very highly regarded. Both parents have very successful careers and are never at home. And yes, of course, one of the uncles takes care of the children, her and her brother, and of course he rapes them. And this story is actually about the unwillingness of the parents to accept that this happened, and the unwillingness to take responsibility and to be accountable for what happened. It was a very shocking book, very shocking. Another one is by Margo Fragoso. I read this book 13, 15 years ago, something like that. It's been a long time. And she wrote a book called Tiger. This is also about child abuse, so be aware. This is her recollection of her youth. She was at the time a child, 8, 9. And yeah, she comes from a broken family. It's only she and her mother is having difficulty making money. And yeah, there's so many stories like that. And then she meets the man that became her lover. He really knew how to groom children, and of course he had a swimming pool at home, and the descriptions are very, very graphic on how he grooms them and how he has sex with them, so it's very graphic. I haven't read this book since then, but I still can see everything. I can still see everything. Unfortunately, Margo Fragoso passed away a couple of years ago of cancer. She was a really good writer, a really good author, but trauma is not so easy to come by. You would expect, now, where are the other books, like The Wasp Factory, or Tender is the Flesh, or although Johnny Got Us Gone is also very traumatizing, can be very traumatizing, by Dalton Trumbo. Those books are very good and very horrifying and troubling in a way, but not traumatizing. I mean, there's always a distance. I recently read The Wasp Factory. And Tender in the Flesh is the Flesh. I read this like not even 2 months ago. And I find it fascinating, but it's like watching Dr. Pimple Popper in a way. It's, but still you want to know, you want to see. So, it's fiction. And here it's more real fiction, in the sense that it's fictionalized reality, and there's a big difference in between those things. So these are the books that I've read, so you don't have to. I hope you liked it, and if you want to read them, well, except for one that is not really available anymore, and the other one is only available in Spanish. These were my top 10. I hope you liked them. I'll be back tomorrow normally with a midweek check-in, and then Friday I have a deep dive. I don't know what about yet. And Sunday is my coffee clutch. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked it, and talk to you later. Bye-bye.